My husband is congenitally infertile, so to preserve his dignity, I adopted a girl. At this time, my friend gave birth to a son for his brother, inheriting a fortune of billions. In a fit of rage, my husband threw our daughter into the orphanage and sent me to the mental hospital, where I suffered and died. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of my wedding. My husband did not hesitate to propose to my best friend. I know he has also been reborn, but can his sterile body have children? Chapter 1. I refuse. When the host asked Julian if he was willing to marry me, he snatched the microphone, his voice resonant and powerful. The scene was in an uproar. On the wedding day, the groom surprisingly did not want to marry the bride, and I had not yet recovered. Wasn't I drowned by that group of lunatics? Pushed into the pool? How did I open my eyes and find myself back on the day of the wedding? In front of me, Julian shot me a resentful glance, then picked up the ring and slowly walked towards my friend Freya, kneeling down devoutly. Freya, I have just seen my heart clearly. All along, I have loved only you. Will you marry me? Freya, though my best friend, after I entered the mental hospital, got involved with Julian. The two had long been entangled. Now Julian is proposing to her. She certainly won't refuse. Freya was taken aback, glanced at me, and shyly agreed. I do. I remained expressionless, yet I understood that Julian had also been reborn. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen Freya. In the previous life, Freya had given birth to a son for his brother Angelo. Julian put a ring on Freya's finger, coldly looking at me. Fernanda, meeting you is the unluckiest thing that has happened to me. Thinking of Julian's heartlessness in my past life, I pressed my lips together, suppressing the hatred deep within. I married Julian, and after a year with no response, I discovered through a series of tests that Julian was congenitally infertile. Yet Julian was very fixated on having children, afraid that Julian would be hurt. I pretended to be pregnant and didn't dare let him accompany me to a single prenatal checkup. When it came time to give birth, I used connections to adopt a baby girl. I thought Julian would be delighted, but to my surprise, he was furious, directly throwing our daughter into the orphanage and spreading rumors that I was insane, forcibly sending me to the mental hospital. At this moment, I realized that his family had assets worth billions, but there was a rule: whoever had a son would inherit. In the mental hospital, I was tormented by the patients, and in the end, I was pushed into a pool and drowned alive. Thinking of this, I trembled all over, as hatred and resentment surged within me. Freya was startled by my crimson eyes and immediately clung to Julian, saying she was scared. Julian snorted. Fernanda, don't look at Freya with that kind of gaze. It's only your own fault for lacking ability. I glanced at Freya, and did not advise her. Kind words are hard to persuade a person intent on death. I wish you happiness. Without a moment's hesitation, I took off the wedding dress and walked straight out. As I reached the door, I collided with Angelo. He was different from Julian. His eyes held a hint of clarity, yet they were filled with determination as he knelt on one knee. Fernanda, will you marry me? I was astonished. How could Angelo be proposing to me? At that moment, Julian brought Freya over and snorted coldly. Angelo, this woman won't bear children. Are you sure you want to marry her? Angelo ignored Julian, and instead gazed at me with deep affection. I clenched my fists. In my past life, I poured my heart out to Julian, yet he treated me with the heart of a wolf and the lungs of a dog. What right does such a cruel person have to inherit billions in assets? I took a breath and nodded slightly. I promise. Chapter 2, a couple should have children. Although there were complications in the wedding, the outcome was good. I married Angelo just like that. In my past life, I devoted all my attention to Julian, always thinking about how to restore his dignity and prevent him from being hurt. While I paid little attention to Angelo, I only remember that Angelo had a great personality, was very responsible, and took great care of Freya after marriage. After inheriting the estate, he was the only one who came to the mental hospital to see me. Humph. Angelo, are you sure you want to spend your life with this stone woman? Don't blame me, as your older brother, for not warning you later. Julian's eyes were filled with contempt for me. To preserve his dignity as a man, I adopted a child in my previous life. Now in Julian's eyes, I am nothing but a stone woman. There were no great waves in my eyes. I had heard worse things in my previous life, and my heart had long since grown numb. But my silence did not cause Julian to stop. Instead, it only fueled his words further. Fernanda, a woman like you shouldn't come out to harm others. You can't even bear a child. It's truly embarrassing. Angelo quickly pulled me behind him, shielding me, his voice deepening. Brother, Fernanda is now my wife. Please respect her. Julian mocked. A woman who can't even compare to a hen. And you, Angelo, treat her like a treasure. I'll just wait for you to regret it. Freya glanced at me and reproached. Julian, what are you saying? Fernanda and I are good friends. You can't say that about her in the future. Though it was a reproachful statement, there was no real blame in Freya's tone. Her eyes were filled with pride. In the last life, Angelo spoiled Freya to the heavens. Yet Freya wasn't satisfied and even flirted with Julian. Now married to Julian, it can be considered her retribution. Julian spat at me. What the hell, friend? Don't associate with her anymore. We need to hurry and have a son. Having said that, he wrapped his arm around Freya's waist and strode away. Angelo held my hand and said softly, my brother has a temper like that. Don't take it to heart. I will protect you from now on. I nodded slightly, feeling a warmth in my heart. Does this place feel maintained by someone? On our wedding night, Angelo told me the ancestral teachings of the Wu family, and then, with some concern, said, I'm not saying this to pressure you into having children, but I believe there should be no secrets between husband and wife. As for children, I don't really like them, and giving birth is a matter of life and death for women. I don't want you to suffer. At worst, we won't inherit the assets. After all, I have hands and feet, and I can completely support you. As if afraid I would overthink, Angelo spoke a long string of words, and from his eyes, I could see genuine emotion. In my past life, Angelo was like a super dad, personally involved in everything for the child. He clearly liked children, yet now he fears my pain and insists he doesn't like them. I couldn't help but chuckle softly, then raised my gaze to meet Angelo's eyes, smiling sweetly. Why not take the money? Besides, we are husband and wife. Having a child is a natural thing. Angelo looked at me in disbelief. Then his expression turned ecstatic as he leaned in towards me. In my past life, Julian lost his humanity because he didn't obtain the inheritance rights, causing my tragic death. In this life, I will take away what he cherishes, the 100 billion assets Julian is destined to never obtain. Chapter 3, Promise to get pregnant within 2 months. The Wu family is a large family, but division is not allowed. So after marriage, we all live in the old residence of Wu family. Only grandma and the nanny are at home. As for Wu father and Wu mother, they have been busy with business abroad and haven't returned for years. Early in the morning, a servant came to invite me to breakfast. I sat up, feeling as if my whole body was about to fall apart, and cast a complaining glance at Angelo, who smiled awkwardly. I'm sorry, I couldn't control it. I shot Angelo a glare, got up to wash up, and went downstairs. Meanwhile, neither Julian nor Freya had arrived yet. Sitting in the main seat, Grandma's face showed a hint of displeasure. I sat beside, my body trembling slightly. In my past life, I had experienced Grandma's ruthlessness. After Julian learned I was a girl, he beat me mercilessly, and Grandma ignored me, never speaking a word in my defense. Noticing my oddity, Angelo pulled me. As warmth spread in my palm, the chill in my heart eased a little. I'm sorry. I was up late last night and arrived late. Julian wrapped Freya and came over to sit down. Freya glanced at me, seemingly a bit proud, and adjusted her collar, revealing the kiss marks on her neck. Quite exaggerated. Grandma was anxious to hold her great-grandson, so she said nothing about it and just had the nanny serve the dishes. Just after finishing dinner, Angelo was about to take me out, but was stopped by Grandma. Looking into her deep gaze, I knew what she was going to say. When are you going to give me a great-grandson? Julian was very anxious to show, leaning towards me, his voice strong. Don't worry, Grandma. We will definitely bring you good news within 2 months. Freya also echoed. Then Grandma looked at us, and Julian was the first to say, Grandma, let's put our hopes on us with Fernanda's body. How could she possibly have a child? Grandma scrutinized me, her expression somewhat somber. I am rather thin, and indeed not the kind of figure that is considered good for bearing children in the eyes of the elderly. On the contrary, Freya has a fuller and rounder figure, and when Grandma looked at her, her expression softened a little. Then he looked at me, as if issuing a command. Within 2 months, I must have good news. Angelo pulled me aside and said, Grandma, how is it possible to get pregnant right after getting married? Besides, I currently have no plans for children. I frowned. Getting pregnant within 2 months is indeed a bit challenging. After all, this matter cannot be rushed. Grandma was somewhat angry. Angelo, this matter is not up to you. I'm telling you, if there's no news within 2 months, don't blame me for kicking you out. Julian immediately went to massage Grandma's shoulders, flattering her. Grandma, don't worry. Your eldest grandson guarantees that you will hold a chubby great-grandchild. Only then did Grandma's expression soften a bit as she handed the bank card to Julian, allowing him to swipe it for Freya at will. Then she went straight back to her room, not even glancing at me and Angelo. Julian came over with the bank card, showing off. See this? It's a black card, with unlimited funds inside. Swipe as you like, whether it's a black card or not. I'm not interested. I want to leave with Angelo, but Julian blocks my way. Fernanda, if I were you, I would have gone to the hospital for a checkup long ago. If you're sick, get treated. Don't delay my second brother. Angelo was about to speak, but I stopped him, unable to help but laugh out loud. Who exactly is sick and needs to get checked? Julian really has no idea. My smile infuriated Julian, and he coldly said, Fernanda, don't think I don't know what kind of person you are. Within 2 months, I will definitely make Freya pregnant, and it will definitely be a son. A person who is inherently infertile actually speaks such brazen words. I smiled calmly. Then I'll congratulate you in advance. Chapter 4, I actually got pregnant first. I thought pregnancy was a distant matter. After all, in my past life, I had never experienced it and had no idea what it felt like to be pregnant. Until that day I fainted, thinking it was low blood sugar. Julian and Freya seized the opportunity to mock me. Grandma also thinks I'm not cut out for pregnancy, so she doesn't waste words with me, but is quite affectionate with Freya. The private doctor examined me and asserted that I am pregnant. Everyone present was stunned, but the most shocked was Julian. He shouted, How is that possible? Fernanda is a stone woman. How could she be pregnant? Moo doctor, you must be mistaken. Moo the doctor was displeased, but only said, I still recommend going to the hospital for a blood test. That way the results will be more accurate. Upon hearing this, Julian seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and became smug. Dr. Moo is the best doctor. He suggested going to the hospital for a checkup, which means there's no pregnancy. But to put your minds at ease, let's go to the hospital for an examination anyway. Dr. Moo's face darkened. Grandma clearly disapproves of us, but still insisted on going to the hospital. To see me make a fool of myself, both Julian and Freya came. Julian was still comforting Freya. Freya, don't be afraid. Fernanda won't get pregnant. This woman is just a hen that can't lay eggs. Angelo was unhappy but ignored Julian, just staying by my side, afraid I might feel unwell again. Freya also came over to comfort me. Fernanda, it's okay. It's still early. Maybe in the future it will happen. Julian snorted. Fernanda can never get pregnant. The two had already determined that I was not pregnant. Angelo couldn't hold back, coldly saying, This is a matter between us as a couple. What does it have to do with you? Julian wanted to say something else, but was stopped by Freya. The two sat aside, looking like they were watching a show. Angelo kept asking me if I felt any discomfort, and I frowned, calculating my menstrual cycle, which had been very regular until now. This time, it indeed exceeded by more than a week. Could it be that I am really pregnant? When the test results came out, as soon as the doctor called my name, Angelo, worried, immediately took the results but stood there in a daze. Seeing this, Julian also walked over to look at the list, his eyes still filled with disdain. After a few seconds of shock, Angelo's face lit up with joy as he came over and picked me up, saying, "Fernanda, you are really pregnant. I'm going to be a dad." He wants to hold me and sway, but then thinks of something and says, "Don't move too much, or you might hurt the baby." I was taken aback. "I'm really pregnant. How is that possible?" Julian was the first to not believe it, coming over to grab the document, but was stopped by Angelo. Angelo let out a soft snort, took the document back, and carefully pulled me away. Julian was still not giving up. "Angelo, you can't use this to deceive Grandma, or else she will kick you all out immediately." Freya was worried that I was really pregnant, and Julian comforted me. "Don't worry, I know Fernanda the best. There's no way she could be pregnant." Neither Angelo nor I took the two of them seriously. When I got home, I looked at the examination report, which indeed stated intrauterine pregnancy, single fetus. I couldn't help but touch my lower abdomen, and a smile crept onto my lips. So this is what it feels like to be pregnant. Chapter 5, the issue of infertility will be exposed. Julian has been looking for opportunities to insult me, while Angelo has taken good care of me, always by my side, not allowing them to come near me. Knowing about the pregnancy, Grandma's attitude softened considerably, and she explicitly forbade Julian and his wife from targeting me. Another month has passed. Julian and they still haven't reacted. They go to the hospital for blood tests every few days, only to return dejected each time. That day, the doctor came to check my health and advised me to eat more, or else the baby wouldn't get the nutrients. And Julian was still being sarcastic. Doctor, you need to be clear. Some people aren't really pregnant. They just fake it to deceive others. Doctor didn't want to say anything, just advised me and left. Grandma furrowed her brows, as if she couldn't explain why Freya wasn't pregnant. So she had the two of them go for a checkup. Julian immediately became unhappy. "I'm so strong. How could there be a problem? Freya, you should hurry to the hospital and check if there's something wrong with you." As if thinking of something, he murmured again, "It shouldn't be possible. Everything should be fine." But Grandma was displeased, so the two had to go for a checkup. But Julian refused to be examined, insisting that he was fine, so the two returned with Freya's test results. Julian exclaimed excitedly, "Grandma, the doctor said that Freya has a hormonal imbalance, and with some proper care, she will be able to conceive soon." Grandma looked at the examination report, then nodded. "You all need to hurry up," Julian assured her. "Grandma, don't worry. I will definitely let you hold your great-grandson, the chubby kind." Only then did Grandma nod. Julian provided Freya with the best food and drink, and soon Freya's waist had grown a whole circle. Another month passed, and Julian still had no news, while I had already stabilized the pregnancy. When I received the examination report, Angelo was once again dumbfounded. I thought something had happened and hurried over to take a look. Intrauterine pregnancy. Twins. I was shocked to find out that it was twins. Angelo looked at me with concern. "Fernanda, will having twins be very tiring? What will we do during the delivery?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Having twins will definitely require a cesarean section. Don't worry. Medicine is so advanced now. Both the babies and I will be just fine. We must also ensure that nothing happens to us." Angelo was still worried. I told him not to mention the twins, and he looked puzzled but agreed. When we got home, Grandma was scolding Julian, insisting that Julian must go for a checkup. Julian was unwilling, frowning tightly. Seeing us return, Julian had a gloomy face. "Fernanda, you still haven't confessed about your fake pregnancy. Be careful not to keep it hidden in the future. However, you are a cunning and treacherous woman. You won't reveal any flaws until the birth. But this time, I will keep an eye on you and will definitely not give you a chance to cheat." Angelo was about to refute, but I pulled him back and gently shook my head. "You can't argue with a fool." Just as I was about to go upstairs, I turned back and smiled. "Grandma, it's obvious that my sister-in-law has no issues, since she hasn't gotten pregnant for so long." My brother should go get checked. If there is a problem, it's better to find out early and treat it early. Julian, with a sullen face, was about to rush over to hit me. Angelo immediately shielded me. Julian gritted his teeth. Fernanda, it was clearly you who faked a pregnancy to deceive me. What face do you have to say that I am sick? I didn't say anything, but Grandma spoke up. Go get checked immediately. Julian was grim-faced, but had no choice but to go for the checkup. However, to prove he was not sick, he insisted on bringing me along. Angelo was not supposed to allow this, but how could I miss such a good opportunity to watch the drama unfold? So I went along. The test results came out, and Julian immediately took them. Seeing him take a sharp breath, I knew that Julian was doubting himself too. Julian held his breath and opened the examination report. I curled the corners of my lips. A good show is about to begin. Chapter 6. Freya is pregnant. Ugh. A dry heave broke the tense atmosphere, and everyone turned to look at the pale-faced Freya. Grandma was the first to react, immediately asking the doctor to draw blood from Freya. Julian put his test results in his pocket and urged the doctor for Freya's results, bursting into laughter when he finally received them. I told you. How could I possibly have a problem? Julian pulled out his list, tore it up in front of us, and smugly said, Freya is pregnant. Do I even need to look at my results? Yes. Theoretically speaking, Freya is pregnant, and Julian naturally has no issues. But I gazed at Freya. She looked flustered but quickly masked it, putting on a smile. In an instant, I understood what was happening. It seems Freya hasn't changed her nature, enjoying putting green hats on others. I thought today would have a good show, but unexpectedly, there was an even better performance to come. Julian helped Freya home. Looking at me, he smugly said, Fernanda, Freya is really pregnant, so don't come out and embarrass yourself with that fake belly. At this point, Julian still thought I was faking my pregnancy. Such a foolish person. No wonder he fell for Freya's tricks. I scoffed at arguing with Julian and simply replied, if you say it's fake, then it's fake. Back upstairs. Angelo suddenly stared at me, startling me. I fumbled around my face as if something was there. Why are you looking at me like that? Angelo hesitated for a moment and asked, Fernanda, I always feel like you're hiding something from me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have any ulterior motives. It's just that you and my brother seem a bit strange. It's quite normal for Angelo to think this way. After all, before this, my relationship with Julian was very good. Suddenly acting like enemies is indeed strange, but how can I explain the matter of rebirth? Seeing me in difficulty, Angelo suddenly smiled. It's fine if you don't want to say anything. After all, marrying you is already great. I held Angelo's hand and said, Honey, don't worry. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's just that the situation is too bizarre, and I don't know how to explain it. But I am truly yours. Although I have thoughts of revenge, Julian, during this time together, I have developed feelings for Angelo. Angelo nodded and helped me to bed to rest. Because of the twins, my belly is somewhat large, and walking is quite difficult. Angelo stays by my side without leaving me. Right now, I just want to take good care of the baby and not fight over anything. But Julian won't let it go. He watches me all day long. Oh, still pretending with that whole belly. Fernanda, I just want to see what you can give birth to. I've heard these words many times already. Angelo has also gotten used to it, only focusing on helping me pick out fish bones. Freya is also showing, walking in an exaggerated manner, holding her waist, and looking at me saying, the baby has been restless these past few days. I can hardly walk. Of course, we are really pregnant. Unlike some people who put on airs and even make their bellies look so big, they have truly never been pregnant and don't understand what a normal pregnancy belly looks like. Julian agreed, but did not go to support Freya. Sitting down proudly by himself, Grandma also looked at my belly, her gaze deepening, while Julian continued speaking. Fernanda, while it's still early, I advise you to confess quickly. I can still provide you with a meal. Grandma looked at me, her gaze deepening. Are you really pregnant? Or is it a lie? Clearly, Grandma has already believed Julian. Chapter 7, The Child is Disabled. Just as Angelo was about to speak, Grandma directly had someone invite Dr. Moo over. Under everyone's gaze, Dr. Moo performed a fetal monitor on me, and the strong heartbeat was very clear. Dr. Moo had always known I was a twin. Angelo had told him to keep it a secret, and he never mentioned the twin matter. Upon seeing this, Grandma finally believed it, and her expression softened considerably. Julian furrowed his brow. How is that possible? Fernanda couldn't possibly be pregnant. She was clearly adopted before. Before he finished speaking, he realized he had misspoken and stared at me in confusion. Grandma asked Angelo to take me to rest, so I could take good care of the baby. At the moment of delivery, Julian was fixated on me again, standing guard at the delivery room door, afraid I would go outside and bring back a child to deceive him. The sound of a baby crying echoed, and I looked at the twins before me, feeling an immense joy in my heart. How could I not like children? In my past life, I truly had no choice. When the child and I were brought out, Julian was still saying it was impossible, as if he were under a spell. Grandma was overjoyed to learn that both twins were boys. She immediately gave me a black card and gifted each of us a villa, a generous gesture. Julian was so angry he was jumping up and down. Grandma, these two children definitely aren't Fernanda's. They must have been brought back from outside. Wild seeds. If you don't believe me, you can do a paternity test. Grandma shot a glare at Julian and said the two children looked exactly like Angelo when he was young. How could they be fake? But Julian was still unwilling to give up, insisting that Grandma directly kick him out so he wouldn't disturb my rest. Julian reluctantly left. I don't know the reason, but before I even reached a month, Freya was already going into labor. Rushed to the hospital overnight, Angelo came to tell me that Julian had given Freya induction medication. I was taken aback, not expecting Julian to be so ruthless. The baby was only 7 months along. Forcing the birth would mean a premature baby, wouldn't it? Not only would it be hard to care for, but the child's health would also be very poor. But given that Julian could do such a thing, I wasn't surprised. After all, this man had long lost his humanity. Besides wanting to inherit the assets, how could he care about human life? Freya gave birth to a baby boy weighing over 3 kilograms, and that very night Julian came back to show off, completely disregarding that the child was premature and needed to stay in an incubator. I helplessly shook my head, meaning Julian was just this child's misfortune. After being back for several days, I hadn't heard the baby cry, and Grandma also noticed something was off, so she called in a pediatrician to examine him. The pediatrician said that the child had issues with both intelligence and hearing. Julian naturally didn't believe it and exploded in anger. Are you a quack? My child is perfectly healthy. Under Grandma's coercion, Julian finally took him to the hospital for a formal checkup. And when he returned, his face was so dark it seemed like it could drip water. The baby is being held by the postpartum caregiver, and the baby's complexion doesn't look good. Julian stormed upstairs, and soon the sounds of hitting and scolding could be heard. Freya, I provided you with everything, and you actually gave me a disabled child. Chapter 8. Disabled? Angelo and I exchanged a glance, and we quickly understood that the premature baby not only hadn't developed properly but had also been exposed to so many medications. It's also pitiful for the child. Grandma sought out experts multiple times, and the results were the same. The child has congenital intellectual disability and is also deaf. Thus, Angelo and I inherited 100 billion assets. Julian furiously shouted, his eyes bloodshot. Why should this be? Is this woman really giving birth to a child of the Wu family? She has no ability to conceive. Who knows where this bastard came from? As soon as he finished speaking, Angelo next to me charged forward, grabbing Julian by the collar and throwing a fierce punch. Julian! I have tolerated you for long enough. If you dare to say that Fernanda and the child are not mine again, I will not let you off easily. Julian was beaten until he spat blood, glaring at me fiercely, but he didn't dare to say anything more offensive. Instead, he went upstairs to drag down Freya, who was in confinement. Bitch, you better tell me. Grandma, this child is not mine. How could my blood be so stupid? Freya was beaten black and blue, while Grandma stood by indifferently, showing no signs of intervention. Clearly, Grandma also thought that giving birth to a fool was Freya's problem. In her, I saw my past self, yet my heart felt not a single stir. Now, it is Freya's own doing. Freya knelt and begged Julian, receiving 2 kicks in return, then crawled to me on her knees. Fernanda, please save me. Aren't we the best of friends? Please help me. Angelo was afraid she would hurt me, so he immediately shielded me behind him. To this, I did not respond. One reaps what one sows. Freya glared at me fiercely. Fernanda, you stood by and did nothing while someone was dying. You deserve to die. I curse your son to never grow up. You will face retribution. I frowned. If Freya was cursing me, I would let it go in one ear and out the other. But now she was actually cursing my child. I squinted and smiled, saying, Freya, that child doesn't resemble my elder brother. I think that's what you should explain. Although Julian was unwilling to admit the child was his. If the child truly wasn't his, this man would definitely go mad. Upon hearing this, Freya's face changed dramatically. You're talking nonsense. I knew that Julian had taken my words to heart. He instructed the postpartum caregiver to bring the child down, examining him closely, his brow furrowing deeper. Grandma also approached, her expression darkening. Let's do a paternity test. As soon as these words were spoken, Freya completely broke down, crawling to grab Julian's pant leg. Husband, you have to believe me. I love you. Julian is a very suspicious person. He immediately had someone send the head for testing. Freya sat slumped on the ground, her expression vacant. The paternity test is expedited. It will be returned in 3 hours. Freya's face turned pale as she stared fearfully at Julian. Julian's face turned ashen as he violently grabbed Freya's hair, cursing, Bitch! How dare you cheat on me? Just wait until I beat you to death. Julian showed no mercy. Freya was weak from giving birth. How could she withstand such a beating? By the end, she could no longer cry out. Enough! Freya suddenly snapped, shouting. She exerted all her strength to stand up, then laughed maniacally. Julian, it's clearly you who are infertile. Why are you blaming me? You're not a man. You're the coward. Freya fished a test result from her pocket, saying, This is your last test result. I had the hospital reprint it. What right do you have to blame me? Julian snatched the test result, and after seeing the results, his eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 9, Taking the Child Hostage as a Threat. Freya laughed maniacally. Haha, a man with no reproductive ability still wants to have a son? It's simply the biggest joke. Julian ripped the test result, grabbing Freya by the neck, his eyes bloodshot. Bitch! I'll kill you! Freya was being choked, her face turning blue. I glanced at Angelo, who took me and the child back to the room, while Grandma left without a word. No one cared about Freya's life or death. Not long after returning to the room, I heard Grandma's cold voice. Just take her for cremation. My body trembled. Julian actually choked Freya to death. Angelo looked complicated. Fernanda, should we call the police? Now the entire Wu family fortune is inherited by Angelo, making him the head of the family. I nodded slightly. Julian's infertility had already been exposed, and with him being cuckolded, given this man's vicious nature, it was only a matter of time before he would turn against me and the child. For the safety of me and the child, Julian must go to prison. Angelo immediately sent someone to handle it. And before long, the police took Julian away, and Julian was unwilling. Angelo, I am your brother. How could you call the police to arrest me? Grandma stood by, her gaze resting on me. I was not afraid, and we locked eyes. Grandma sighed, said nothing, and turned to leave. With the inheritance rights, Grandma had us move out of the old house and into our own villa. Angelo was also very busy, handling various procedures every day, along with the company handover, while the postpartum caregiver and I took care of the child at home. The evidence provided by Angelo is sufficient. Julian was sentenced to life in prison. I should be happy, but for some reason, I feel inexplicably anxious. Julian is executed. There shouldn't be any danger around me. So why do I feel uneasy? Sister Lou, please don't take the children down during this time. I arranged for the postpartum caregiver and also mentioned it to Angelo. He immediately arranged for a few bodyguards. In this way, I felt a bit more at ease. But no matter how many precautions I took, unfortunate events still occurred. While we were at the hospital getting the child vaccinated, Sister Lou and I each held one, and suddenly Sister Lou ran over saying the child was missing. I immediately called Angelo to investigate. It was Julian who took the child away. Seeing Julian's malicious expression in the video, my body went weak. Wasn't he sentenced? Just as I was about to call the police, Julian called. If you want the child, come to the abandoned building in the west of the city. Without waiting for me to speak, Julian hung up. The child is my precious darling. How could I allow him to be in danger? I immediately rushed over with Angelo. Julian was holding the child on the 15th floor. When he saw us arrive, he gave a cold smile. Fernanda, didn't expect this. Did you? I've escaped. You thought you could send me back and take over my 100 billion assets? Dream on. Angelo with a cold face. Julian, if you have a problem, come at me. Just give me back my child. Julian burst into laughter. A child? Heh, you want a child? I have a way, but I don't know if you're willing to listen. Willing, I said eagerly. The child must not come to harm. Julian grinned, laughing sinisterly. Transfer the 100 billion assets to me, and arrange a private jet to send me out of the country overnight. Hearing that Julian was in it for the money, I breathed a sigh of relief. Money can be given to you, but first, give me the child. Julian was about to hand the child to me, then lifted the child over the edge of the rooftop, laughing ominously. Fernanda, do you think I'm a fool to be tricked like this? Chapter 10, the ending that should be. I'll give you an hour. Hurry up and prepare the cash and helicopter. I'm leaving the country. Julian glared at me. I immediately had Angelo make arrangements. Money can be absent, but the child must not come to harm. Angelo agreed with me. Wealth is not as important as the child, so he calmed Julian's emotions, looking at me with concern, and left to prepare uneasily. After Angelo left, Julian suddenly looked at me with a resentful expression. Did you know I was infertile before? Is that why you adopted? I didn't expect Julian to ask that, and I didn't answer. Julian laughed self-deprecatingly. Well, you definitely wouldn't know about my past life. But, Fernanda, I really did love you. Love me? How could you have tormented me so in your past life? Love me? In this life, you use my child to threaten me. This kind of love, who would dare to want it? I try not to speak, letting Julian do the talking himself, waiting for his emotions to calm down a bit, so he doesn't do anything threatening to the child's safety. After half an hour, Julian couldn't wait any longer and kept tilting his head to look outside. Hurry up and call Angelo. Tell him to hurry, or I will throw this little bastard down right away. I immediately called Angelo and put it on speaker. Hearing that Angelo was already withdrawing money, Julian's expression improved a bit. I also took this opportunity to edit and send out a message. Julian, I will make sure you face justice. Angelo returned in 50 minutes, carrying 2 boxes of money. Julian was displeased. Is this all the money? Angelo pointed outside. There are still many more down there. If you don't believe me, you can lean over and take a look. In the empty space downstairs, there were dozens of large suitcases, all filled with money, and Julian's eyes lit up. What about the helicopter? Angelo said. The helicopter will arrive in half an hour. Julian furrowed his brows, instantly becoming suspicious. How is that possible? Angelo, are you playing some trick behind my back? Saying this, he lifted the child again. I was busy saying, the helicopters start up and journey take time. The baby is in your hands. What can we dare to do? Julian only then withdrew his hand. A light flashed before my eyes not far away, and I noticed a figure at the edge of the rooftop, letting out a breath. I must attract Julian's attention. So, I revealed that secret. Julian, I know what happened in our past lives. I loved you so much. Yet why do you treat me this way? To save your man's face, I went to adopt a child. You don't understand him why. Yet you sent me to a mental hospital. Do you know how miserable I was in there? Those mental patients tormented me day and night. And in the end, they drowned me in the pool. Julian, you say you love me. Is this your love? You're still involved with Freya, plotting over 100 billion assets. Tears streamed down the corners of my eyes. I specifically mentioned the mental hospital. Julian wouldn't have any doubts. He naturally knows that he did all these things in his past life. Julian was shocked. You were reborn too? Then why didn't you find me? Why didn't you tell me the truth? I cried loudly, expressing that Julian chose Freya as soon as he arrived. The more I cried, the louder I became. The more I cried, the sadder I felt. There was a hint of regret in Julian's eyes. But it was too late. The comrade behind took advantage of his distraction, snatched the child away, and then kicked Julian away. Julian crashed against the wall, spat out a mouthful of blood, and upon seeing the police, he shouted, "Fernanda, you damn it are doing this to me on purpose. I will kill you." Julian charged towards me, and with the sound of a gunshot, Julian fell before me, his eyes filled with unwillingness and resentment. A pool of blood was oozing from the hole in his forehead. I hurriedly took the child, checked that everything was fine, and only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Looking at Julian on the ground, my gaze turned icy. This is exactly the ending that Julian should have.